Hello everybody. This video is about localization in DNN. It is not a tutorial for using localization or targeted at site administrators that want to have a localized site. This video is specifically about translating and submitting your translations for DNN so that might be included into the official DNN language packs. Um, you can use the same techniques to make your own language packs, to customize them to your liking, but the goal is this. Now, video is not a great medium for maintainability, so if you see anything described in this video and you see that 2 years from now and documentation says otherwise, things might have evolved and what I'm saying might be moot. So keep that in mind. But as it stands today, this is how it works in DNN. We have our main code repository here in github.com, DNN software, DNN.platform, and this is the source code of DNN. There are some files in here that represent strings that are displayed, and that's what we called static localization. And those strings are not hard-coded in order to be able to show the English or French or Spanish version of the same string for users in different languages. And that's what we called static localization. By the way, if you're interested into more the administration side of things or using localization, let me know in the comments and hit the notifications, and I will check into doing videos more targeting those subjects. But just to set the stage, this is only about creating those static localizations in other languages and potentially submit them to the official language packs that are reviewed and distributed with the DNN update service. If you go back by one, so this is the project and this is the organization. Within the same organization, if you search here for language, you will find all kinds of language packs, something, something. In this case, the one we will be working on right now will be FRFR. Why is there twice? It's because one is the language and the other one is the location. So this would be French in France. And depending on the language, there might be a lot or very little differences between the same language spoken in different places of the world. One example is Portuguese. This one is Portuguese from Brazil, and this one is Portuguese in Portugal. And I know there's more differences. I am Portuguese, by the way, and I speak French more fluently. Um, but I know for a fact that Portuguese in Portugal and Brazil, they have a lot of differences. And it's not the case with French, where in France and Quebec, they're pretty similar except some expressions, but the French from France will be perfectly understood all over the world. It's a bit more standard than in other languages. Um, the language packs that are listed here are a bit different than the ones you're going to find anywhere else because they get reviewed and they get published with the DNN update service, like I said. So we will see this in a minute. And if you submit languages here, they will go through a better review process, and we distribute them basically. So let's get set up with creating our own local instance of DNN just for testing and to have a source of those languages. The tool I prefer using for this is NVQuickSight. If you are not familiar with NVQuickSight, you could go to nvquicksite.com. This is a free open source project that is made by Envisionative, our friend David Poindexter's company. And you can install this, like you just go to downloads and install it, and you will end up having that in your start menu. And it is the quickest way to install DNN locally. I won't go through all of the requirements of having this tool actually working for you. But basically, you need IIS, you need to have SQL Server setup on the machine you're going to run it. And there's a couple details and stuff to set it up, but it's pretty simple and straightforward. Once you got that, you can basically decide on what version of DNN you want to install. And for a major version, you might have a drop down with all of the minor and patch versions of that release. I'm going to go for the latest at the time of recording again, so you might have other values here. And also, if there is a release candidate out and you want to start translation before it's even released, you should see an additional item here for release candidates only if in the settings you accept to have release candidates. If not, they won't show there. Just by selecting that, it will get downloaded from the internet unless it's not the first time you do it and you have a local cached copy. But basically, you go next and accept, and then you decide on the site name you want to give it. So I'm going to call this one just dnndev.luck, and I'm going to enable SSL. These are all details of the tool, but basically this gets persisted after the first time you get it running. After that, it's very, very simple to use. It's going to unzip the install and put it in the right folder, and eventually offer you to visit the website, which is right here. It's going to set up your host file to point this fake domain name to your local IP address, so it hits your local IIS. This is usually faster because I'm recording. It takes a bit of resources. And basically, you just select the password, type in a password twice, and keep the default values. Now, right here, there's language flags. This defines the language of the installation interface. So if I go to France here, then my descriptions for the installer is in French. But I might not speak French, but I have to make a French website. So in addition to that, I can leave this in English. And I can pick here the language I want to create the site in, which is very interesting, right? That those languages are defined here by the languages that are in the update service. So DNN calls out to check if there's updates, and as part of that information, it gets the available language packs, which is very, very fun. But I'm going to do just a normal English website because I want to make sure I have all the English stuff, and I'll show you how to add a language should you already have a local testing site. Now, it's important for the next steps that this is a clean site without extra modules. You can absolutely localize other modules, in which case go ahead, but if you want to contribute them to those repositories, we want only what's part of the DNN. We don't want to have other third-party module localizations included with them. All right, so once the installation is complete, I'm going to visit the site. While that loads, let me add that all of those open source tools, oops, that's not what I wanted, NV Quick Site, whoa, NV Quick Site, all of the open source tools that you get for free that are awesome, if you like them, make sure you go and check the GitHub. Most of open source software today is on GitHub, but a lot of the maintainers of these great products, like David Poindexter for NV QuickSite, have sponsorship set up. So if you like those products, they save you time, make sure you go there, hit the sponsor button. There's all kinds of monthly, one-time, preset amounts or custom amounts, little pat in the back, the guy can buy some coffee, etc. It's really great to be able to thank those people in a meaningful way. So here's my a blank, clean DNN website. And if I want to add a language pack, I can go to Site Settings. Sorry, we can go to Extensions, and you will see an available extensions in core language packs. These files are not local. This information comes from the update service also, and only for the core language packs, not for any other type of extension. So they are kind of special. And you will see a version here, and this represents the most up-to-date information we have for any given language pack. Is 920. So you can install this, and basically it's called deploy here. You can totally install this, and it's gonna work, but you might be missing a lot of stuff. And it may work, it may not work, depends on how off it is from current reality. And you can see that for French, I have just updated it a week ago or 2 weeks ago for DNN 10.1.2, but there was an issue with the localization tool, and there's still a small portion of what I have submitted that is not in the right location. And that's what we're going to use as a demo today to make a translation, even though I've already done the translation. All right, so I'm going to deploy this language pack so that I have a starting point. If you are doing another language and there's an older version available, you can totally install an older version for the purpose of only having to translate what's missing. Right? There's tools to go clean up keys that don't exist anymore, to find all the things that have changed versus that are not translated yet, and stuff. But you can start from an existing language pack so that you don't have to translate as much, which is exactly what I'm doing here by installing that incomplete. Well, it's complete, but there's some things that are not in the right location language pack, and we will see those in a few seconds. All right, so now that this is installed, I also want to enable in site settings, languages. Well, it's already there. Perfect. So if you want to do some testing and see it in the UI and stuff, you can go and enable the language and set up pages and etc. etc. But again, I don't want this video to be too long. I don't want to actually use it. I just want to use tooling to go and do the translations for right now. But it could be a good idea to enable it and do some further testing inside of the UI. I think, and I'm not sure, and I didn't test, but that the new theme does not have out-of-the-box a language switcher. Let's try it. Let's go and turn this on. No, which we need to save this, and then enable this. Reload. And let's go there. Enable. Don't focus too much on what I've done here. It's a bit of a clunky UI, but all right. So as I was thinking, the new Aperture theme is very, very minimalistic, and it doesn't have out-of-the-box a language switcher. So we know that we have ENUS here, but if I switch to FRFR just in the URL, I should, in theory, well, I mean, again, this is content, so this doesn't get magically translated. There is a process with templates to do translation, but I would have had to start the site already in French. But you can see that my controls are now in French, right? And probably these controls also. So those are static localization, so it's strings and resource files, and the same thing for everything in the persona bar and stuff. I'm gonna switch back to English just so people can see in English the controls. But from this point, if I now go to site settings, languages, DNN itself as a way for you to do translation, but it's very basic. So the icon here with the symbols is where you would see all of those resource files that contain the translation strings. So if I go to, I'm going to go to global resources, shared resources. This has a lot of very common words like accept, add, yes, no, all, things that are very, very multi-purpose that you can use everywhere. And you will see the default value. So that's like what's provided with DNN versus the localized value, which would be in this case in French. And you can translate on the global host or site level. If you don't do global, this would be to be isolated from language pack updates. Uh, or if you have multiple sites and you want to have different values, then you would do it on the site level. For the purpose of submitting a language pack, you would want to leave this on global, but knowing that if there's an update to the language pack, your customizations will be overwritten by that update. So this is one way, and you can hunt all the little controls. Local resources will give you all of the desktop modules, HTML. There's a lot of little clicking and finding, and this thing doesn't dismiss. And you can, however, show the pending translation. So it's gonna find things where on the left and right they have the same value, which could be normal. It happens a lot in French that the French word is exactly the same as the English word, or it could be a hint that, hey, you need to localize this. So that's the gist of it. And if any of the templates include HTML, you also have a little pencil and a very basic little HTML editor with a toolbar. And if you do this, you can then export the language pack directly from DNN with create language pack. And it's going to ask you if you want to do core, module, provider, auth system, or full, assuming that you have not installed any third-party extension. Then you would do full, and that should give you the same result as what's provided with DNN, the English language pack, which is basically the full everything that comes with DNN, basically. And yeah, you can give it a name and create, and that's the thing you would get for localization to distribute. Now, there are a couple of tools that are less basic than just going in here and having a lot of clicking and finding and keeping little notes of what have I done, what have I not done. And one of these tools is the DNN localization Windows software, which you would find on GitHub, DNN Connect. Hold on a second. DNN Connect. There. So on the DNN Connect repository, DNN Connect is the European Association. If you Google DNN Connect, you will find dnn-connect.org. It's the European-based DNN association / user group / events. Very fun bunch of people. The guy you see right in front here is the main maintainer of this project, Peter Dunker. And again, if you like that project, you will see he's listed in the contributors. Go see if he has sponsorship setups. If you have some money, you love the product, go and sponsor that project so it can evolve. There's a lot of little issues with the software, and I would like to see it evolve into something better. So, with no further ado, let me go back to the repo. Now, GitHub, DNN Connect, there. So if you go to releases, you will see there's a version 141 that got released in January 2024. And basically you can download that file. Inside of it is the installer. You run it, it's going to install. There's a couple little glitches with the installer, but nothing that's going to prevent you from installing it. Basically, it doesn't do a subfolder in the start menu, and the product name is called only translator. So that would be nice to improve. But once it's installed, you can search for translator and you will find this software with the broken icon, but it's there and it works. Now, this has its own database, but it connects to a site, which is a very interesting approach because it allows a better performance and a better way to keep track of the status of your localization. So the first thing we need to do is to actually create a project by going to New and selecting, oops, hold on, by going to, oh, because I already have my projects here. All right, so like if we do a new project, the first thing we need to select, let me backtrack a little bit. There is documentation on the repository. There is a documentation subfolder, and this is very old documentation. It was written like 14 years ago, but it's still valid. So you can go through the setup and the explaining of how the tool works. It's a Word document, and you can go through that. But as a summary, when you go to New, then it asks you to select that test DNN site that you had set up just earlier. And in my case, that's going to be on my D drive websites, and then DNN dev, and then website. And right out the box, it will detect that this is Community Edition 10.2.1.0. And here's all the folders where I found there was localization files. If you do this process through a multi-day endeavor, or you're scared that the software crashes, which happens, it's not perfect, you can save this as a project. So there's a little save as, and you can go and save it as a project. I'm gonna, for instance, override my core TR project file here that I had from earlier that had something wrong because of the locations. I'm gonna override that project, but you could just create one. If you also localize extensions, you can keep a project for every little extension and stuff and different test sites and etc. All right, now there's two toolbars here, and they could potentially benefit from a little cleanup, but in Home, there's some controls, and in Component, there are some other controls, and some of them are repeated. My understanding is that Home is for everything, and that Component is for the current thing you're working on. So we see here there's a drop down with different components. So these are all different little areas of DNN or third-party extensions that you can work on independently. So these would be like the very common global controls, and then everything for the console, which is an extension, but it's not a third-party extension. It comes distributed with DNN, and so on and so forth, the HTML module, the different connectors, etc. And they all show up in the list here. So it's a bit strange how it works. But if I go home, I can't go home. I need to be on component. Most of the work I do in component anyway. So you can do a couple things. Analyze will analyze the current component and show you what's to be done. So if I hit analyze here, it's gonna analyze the community edition core language files with a couple pieces of information, and it's going to tell you, oh, I missed an important part. See, locale here is empty. I need to set what I'm going to be translating in options here. And I'm going to just go move this to a different screen that is not recording to remove some keys. This here. All right, just to make sure. So in the settings, general, there's translation services. So you don't have to translate everything by hand. Be very careful. They're not perfect. They can make mistakes like any other AI first disclosure. This thing can do mistakes, and those mistakes could have potential security issues. So although it saves a lot of time, make sure if you use a translation service that you, as a human, validate that what it did was right. And then you can set the target language. So in my case, it's going to be French. And this is the copyright that will be applied to the produced language pack. If you are doing it for DNN to submit to DNN, then those are the values you want to have in there. If you are doing something for your own, or if you do commercial localization, then you would do this here. If you're going to be using a translation service, then you have to paste your translation service API key here. I'm not going to go explain all how to do it, but basically it's going to be different for Bing or Google. I don't use Bing. I don't know if it still works, but I use Google and it does work. And you basically need to create a billing profile, and you need to create a Google API services profile, and then in those services you're going to select translation, create an API key, and it's going to give you a key you're going to put in here that I replaced by a couple X's. It is free up to a certain level, and that free level is quite high, but you still need to go through all the steps of setting up billing. Then the project settings, which is what I'm missing here. I don't have a locale, so this is specific to this project. In this case, I want to use the exact same values, but your mileage may vary. So this is going to be a French friends project, and I don't need the connection URL, the access key. This would be to connect to a remote DNN instance instead of a local one. I know it's possible. I don't know if it still works. I don't know how to set it up, but it's one thing that this software is supposed to be able to do. I think that's all, because this here would be to override the basic settings we have in general. So I think we can leave this all blank and just not take override. I think that's fine. Okay. And then I'm gonna, now it shows that I'm working on the French language pack. And if I return to settings, because I'm gonna put back my API key, but off screen, won't be long here. I'm gonna put back my API key and save my settings. All right, cool. So back to what we were doing. We hit analyze here. It's gonna analyze the core language files, and it's telling me that there's 5 translations missing. There's 137 values that are the same in the base DNN as they are in French. Could be normal, could not be normal. There's 0 obsolete translations. That would be things that you have in your French language pack but no longer exist in the base one. And overall, there's 3,462 valid translations. Valid meaning they're not obsolete, and they are different from the base version. That's what Analyze does. And then you can click on the edit button of any of these items, and it's going to filter down to only these things. So that's great. If there are obsolete translations, that's the purpose of clean. So if this was at 50 and I hit clean, it's going to delete all of the keys that are no longer needed. They don't make sense anymore in the new version of the DNN we're translating to. Then you can go down the list, right? So missing translations, there's 5. Let's go and edit. And it gives you the file. It's going to give you the key. This is what the code looks for, and the value for that key. and we can see that we have those two have no value at all, so it's probably an optional localization. I'm gonna leave them the way it are, and these are actual values, right? So I need to translate this in order to fix the missing translation values. And there, I could just start typing, but another thing I could do is use Google Translate. So if I go to um, home, right, it's a little confusing because you have to keep switching one and the other, but you have the translation service section here, and the target language is important. That's what gets sent to Google or Bing, and then you can translate to the target. I don't use temp. It's probably very useful. I don't use it. So if I click this, it's gonna call Google Translate and give me a value right away. JavaScript n'est pas autorisé dans l'entête des modules. That looks good. I can go to this one and do the same. JavaScript n'est pas autorisé dans les pieds de page des modules. That looks good. I like to save very, very often because it's not perfect. Sometimes the software crashes. I don't want to lose my progress. So I'm going to hit save. Go back to my component. I can close this. And then same translation, there's 137 of them. So I would go to edit. And here we have the original value versus the French value. And I'm gonna check that they make sense. There's things that you will see in localization files surrounded by square brackets. Those are tokens. They're gonna get replaced by something else. Very often, the automatic translation tools like Google Translate will translate what's inside of the tokens. It's hit and miss. So make sure if you use Google Translate to validate that those are not localized. Those are tokens that the code will go and replace, and those exact names for the tokens are expected. So be careful in that. Um, so I know because I have done it recently, it's going to be pretty quick for me to go through these and see what is the same word in French or English versus something that needs to be translated. Things that connect with third-party services, like I guess this is OAuth configuration. That's literally how they are on that third-party service. So I'm going to leave them, even though they're the English name, the way they are. And by the way, localization is all about context. So you have to look at the file name and try to know a little bit what it belongs to. This is for desktop modules admin search results. So it's a type of search result. If you're not sure, go to the extension it belongs to see it in context what this might mean and make sure that it makes sense in the context. Right, so that's a class name for CSS. I don't want to change that because it expects this. It's not something that's actually displayed to the user. These are all tokens, 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 nothing to translate there. And I'm going fast because I've done it recently. I usually spend a little bit more time on this. All right, so these all make sense to me. There's nothing obsolete, so I'm good. And this would just show everything if you want to make sure that what is already translated is still good and has no typos or errors. You could go through 3,000 some keys, but I prefer to do this as individual bug fixes if I spot something wrong in DNN when I use it. And it takes also a lot more time to load. Come on, come on. There we go. So it opened everything. Oops, I hit close just as it opened. But anyway, software is not perfect, not super fast, and it took a while to load this up. And I had clicked on the X just to cancel out, and just when it loaded, it closed it. So yeah, that would show all. And then we have one component done. And then we can go to the console and we can analyze it. And it's going to give you 0 missing translations, 2 are the same. That's pretty quick. Yep, that's good. Same word. And that's it. I'm done with that one. DNN edit bar. Analyze. This is the same translation. Yep, that's good. There's nothing else to do on that one. Rinse and repeat for all of those little parts. I just want to at least find one where I have. So you see this one has 9 obsolete translations, and I can go and see them, and it's going to show me, you know, what it used to be that no longer exists in DNN, and I can go and just clean. And apparently I need to analyze after the clean, right? So now obsolete translations is at 0. So those are things that existed in the French language pack, but no longer exist in DNN. And the persona bar, I know there's been changes with DNN 10, so that's why I have a bit more, right? I have 36 missing translations and 136 that are the same, so potentially are not translated or are the same words in English and French. But I'm going to go with the missing just to show one of the last things I want to show in this video, which is you also don't have to go one by one. Again, software is not perfect and it often crashes, so I like to save often. If I pick a lot of things and I use translate to target, if you have like 20, 50, you're almost sure it's going to crash. I don't know why. It's a fix that we would have to do there. It would be really, really useful. But I like to pick a small number. So maybe, oops, why can't I unselect? Well, that's weird. I like to pick, I don't know, 5, 10, something like that. There, okay. I like to pick a handful of them and translate. And that worked. If I select too many, it might crash. And that's why I like to save often and just reopen. The project is there, so you can continue exactly where you left off just by reopening the recent project. It would also be fun if that could be larger, because it shows the full path and you don't know what's what. But yeah, so I will use Google Translate to help me work faster, but then I'm going to read everything in detail. So that looks fine. That looks fine. Yep. That looks fine. This probably is fine. Outdated, dépassé. In the context of servers. I guess it's fine. Valid version is the same word in English and French, so that's good. That's good. That's good. There's also custom dictionaries you can use here that are very useful for words that that you want to reuse. And some of the repositories, yeah, let me show you this little detail. Not all of them, but some of the repositories have some advice directly on their own little README file, because there might be 3 ways to say the same English word in French with a bit more context. And usually we land on a preference, right? So a container in English and French could have a couple of different ways, and in the past there has been a couple of different names for a container in French in earlier language packs. So we try to harmonize on the same name if there's multiple valid translations, just for not confusing the user and thinking it's something different. Same thing goes for a module. So we mark the preferred one. This is a good one. Event viewer was renamed to admin logs in English, and there's multiple ways it got translated in French, because there's a gazillion ways to say this in French that would have roughly the same meaning. So we just selected one, and please try to always use this one. Same thing for friendly name. There would be a few ways to say that in French. Um, a flag could be literally a flag, or in the context of code, it could be a command flag or something. So we want to use drapeau in French versus indicateur d'option for a command line flag, so on and so forth. The recycle bin, there's a couple of ways to say that. So sometimes there's an agreed upon standard of those that maintain that language to let's always use that name instead of that name, for clarity for users. So yeah, that's where dictionary could be useful. Um, so yeah, rinse and repeat. You see, try again with square brackets. Well, is that a token or is that a link? I happen to know for a fact that this is a link. Try again. So I don't know what Google Translate will do, but we'll soon see. So you see it translated inside of the bracket. Sometimes it's going to do it, sometimes it's not going to do it. And that's where it's important to know DNN a little bit and know, well, how is this used and should it be translated or not? Right, you're going to see a lot of those little squiggly brackets with the number. This is a positional replacement. So sometimes there's a 0, there's a 1, a 2, a 3. We want to keep them exactly as is, and knowing that this is going to be replaced by something. So the uploaded file something is not a valid DNN package. So my guess is that this is going to be the file name. So when you do the translation, you want to make sure this is at the right position depending on the syntax of the language you're speaking, so that this gets injected between the proper words. Le fichier téléchargé n'est pas un package invalide. Makes sense. Package, I think I would use paquet. Yeah, that's good. Save, often, translate. Right, I used paquet here, so let's use it everywhere. Interestingly, although this is proper French, I'm sure people in France would probably use the English word. They use way more English words into their French than people in Quebec would do, especially in more official contexts. That makes sense. All right, that looks good. Save often, and then I would just go to the next step, which would be same translations, and then to the next component and do the same, clean, analyze, go through the files, translate, and stuff. So that this video doesn't get super long, I'm gonna pause here and do the complete translation I have to do to not make you wait. And if I find anything interesting along the way, I'll add it to the video, and then we will go into actually saving and submitting the language pack. All right, so I finished going through all of the translations, and there was nothing special to mention in the video, so I didn't have to add anything. Which brings us to the step of actually saving this and making it a contribution potentially. So once you're done, make sure you go back from any specific component to the main one Community Edition 10.2.1, and in Components you can save. The system will ask you, do you want to do a full core pack, which means everything in this component together with all the other components that come with DNN. So if you select yes, everything will be included. That's why it's important to not install any third-party extensions if you want to contribute this back to DNN. If you hit no, then it's going to include only the base things in DNN and not any of the provided extensions. So in most cases, we want to do yes here, and it's going to ask you a place where you want to save it. It's going to offer a decent name, and I'm just going to copy the path here for later, save, and I can open this up and explore. Let's get a new Explorer window here on this screen. There, I can paste the path. Come on, Windows. There we go. And the one that I just saved is this one. Let's remove this one just to make sure we're clean. So this is a full language pack. If we look into the zip, we have not only admin stuff, but we also have desktop modules and all the extensions like the HTML, which is technically an extension, but it's provided with DNN. So everything is there, and it should even have a manifest here that should use, and it could be interesting to verify it, the information we have put to give attribution to the contributors, and this is Copyright.net Foundation, which all of the DNN stuff is. There we go. And basically this is ready to go. If you want to make it, you're not a GitHub expert and you just want to submit the file for someone else to handle the Git specific things, then you can go to the repository for the language that you are translating and just create an issue. You need a GitHub account, which is free. You can create an issue and just as part of the comments of your issue, you can drag that file. I don't know how to do it properly in Git. Please someone help, but I translated everything and someone will pick up the next steps. If you want to actually do better and actually submit the language pack, then you can fork the repository. With the little fork button here, allows you to create your copy of that repository in your own GitHub account. And then you can clone that fork and put the files over, basically. So I'm going to do that just to show it, but you don't have to. It just makes reviews easier. I already have a fork, so I'm going to pick my fork here, copy that, and then in a terminal, let's go to my C drive and, I don't know, make there fr localization and then cd fr. It could be whatever name you want, but in here, git clone my fork. Open that up in Explorer. Right, and this is the content of the repository, and you will see a resources folder. Everything else, don't touch it, leave it as is. And this should pretty much match what's in this zip file, except for the license.txt file there. But basically I can grab all that and just extract it here, replace the files, and I should be good to go. If you want to see what's changed, you can even grab this here. Let me close my VS Code here, and basically I can grab this and open in VS Code. Open with code. Could be other tools too. All right, and if you have the Git extension, which I think comes with VS Code, you should see a summary of the changes. And here you can go and see what was changed. And you see the diff is pretty clean. Everything else doesn't have changes, and only the things that I adjusted, that I added new translations because they did not exist in the earlier language pack, or I corrected some text, or I removed things that no longer exist, like web slice got removed. So that's one of the obsolete keys. That was the cleanup step that removed those keys, and so on and so forth for each file. And this is what the reviewers will see when they do their review, if it makes sense or not. In the context of DNN, that the tokens are fine and that everything is good, right? And voila, once you have verified that this at least makes sense to you, you can submit a pull request. So I'm going to do exactly that right here. There's different tools you can use. You can use the command line, you can use VS Code, you can use whatever Git client you have or IDE that supports Git. And I'm gonna, for me, create the branch. I'll call it, I don't know, update 2026-01-19. Oops. I have permission issues. Hold on. I'm gonna do something that you should never do. Just because I have a weird setup for permissions here, but I'm gonna add all users. Whoops. You probably don't have to do that. All right, so I'm going to create a branch. And by the way, if there's language packs that were very old and you want to go one version at a time, and let's say the language pack was made in DNN 6, you could target latest DNN 7, do a PR. When it's reviewed and merged and published, you can start from 7 to 8, and then 8 to 9, and 9 to 10, so on and so forth. You don't have to go latest in one go also. Updates 2026-01-19 would be the name of my branch, and I'm going to do a commit updated language pack as of 2026-01-19, and you can also write a this is just a trick here. If a commit, the first line of the commit will become the title of your PR. You can change it later. You don't have to do this exactly this way. And everything after line 2 would become the description of that pull request. So this language pack was updated for DNN 10.1.2 earlier, but there was an issue with paths that made it miss some updates. This fixes it. Something like that. And then I can publish my branch. And automatically I can, GitHub will see, hey, you have a new branch, do you want to submit a PR? And yes, I do. And you want to submit from your fork to the DNN repository. I have a conflict, which you should not have. I'm just going to pause the video and do that. Hold on a second. All right, so ignore the merge conflict. This is something because I've done it in the past. I hadn't updated my stuff and I was doing videos and stuff. You should see something like this, just a suggestion to create a pull request. And when you do, you are offered to put a title. I said that that should be automatically populated. It only happens if you have a single commit, because I have two, that part didn't work, but it should have if you didn't run into the issue I ran. I'm going to copy this and this for the title. There. There we go. Don't worry about labels and milestones and stuff. You might not even be able to change them, but you can submit your pull request, and maintainers will come and review this, and potentially they might ask you for little changes once they review. And if it is the case and you followed the Git process that I showed here with VS Code or any other tool, then you can just go back to the files and react to those little changes, do an additional commit. It's going to automatically update your PR. If you didn't, because you don't know Git and you did it as a zip file, probably the maintainer will correct these things or ask what should go there if it's a language they don't speak. It is a problem with localization. We don't speak the languages, so we want to have humans that speak the language that we trust, that we know, to review those language packs. So it might take a little bit of time before we get like someone to review the changes. If you're someone we don't personally know in the field that we inherently trust, so don't be surprised by that. That's it, basically. Very often, if the changes are big and it's a language we don't speak, we might ask GitHub Copilot to do reviews, just to have a perspective from an AI that will detect very common things that are wrong with multiple languages, because AI speak multiple languages. So it might be something you see a review from an AI, and you will see a list of comments. If the AI review doesn't make sense to you and like my thing is correct, just say so, and we can approve those pull requests. That's basically it. So within a couple days or a week or two, you should see your contribution be part of DNN if everything comes fine from reviews. Thanks for watching, and make sure that if you have questions or anything, comment and I will try to address them. If you want to see other interesting content for DNN things, also let me know in the comments. You can subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you will know about future videos in this channel. Have a good one.